Good afternoon and welcome, and good morning to some of you on the West Coast, and welcome to The Point, 50.1's live stream here. And today we're with our brand expert, Rachel Kerestes, and we're going to talk about 2016 presidential campaign logos. We have 4 big contenders that have recently launched their bids, and Rachel's going to talk a little bit about their logos. And first, Rachel, what are we looking at with these logos, and what do they mean, I think, to the general audience?
And what do they mean? Well, that's a good question, Michael. So, the important thing to think about when we're talking about logos is that we're talking about brands, and when we're talking about brands, we have to remember that the logo in and of itself is not the brand. So the brand is all of the intangible things about usually a company or a product that makes us want to buy something, but in this case, we're talking brands that we want to vote for, and these are pertaining to the presidential candidates.
All right, so let's take a little deeper dive into the presidential candidates, and we're going to go based on the order in which they submitted and launched their official campaigns here. So we're going to start with Senator Ted Cruz.
So we start with Ted Cruz. So this is a very traditional campaign logo. Here we've got a serif font, you've got the full name, you've got the year, and you've got logo type, and you've got an icon. There's a lot going on here. It's very conservative in style. It's not necessarily very consumer-oriented. There's been a lot of chatter about all of these logos, actually, but a lot of folks aren't sure exactly what this symbol is meant to be. Not a lot you can deduce from this logo, except that it's kind of traditional, it's kind of conservative, which may be who Ted Cruz is as a candidate.
Maybe a little bit, and I know when he launched when he had his remarks to launch his campaign, he tried channeling a little bit of Ronald Reagan in him, so maybe that's a little harkening back to the, as you said, older conservative approach.
Maybe it is.
The next campaign we're going to look at is Rand Paul, so a little different here, right, Rachel?
A little different. Obviously, this logo has a little bit more of a forward motion to it. Just the first name, not the full name, so maybe an effort of Rand to separate himself from his father, who ran for president in the last couple of cycles. A lot of commentary on this logo out there in the social media space. The number one comment I've seen from people is that it looks like a B2B brand. Maybe it looks a little bit like the Rand Corporation. And, another use of a flame icon, which is interesting because you've got 2 candidates already in the field using fire as a symbol. Not exactly sure what that means. Maybe it's a new Hunger Games to get to the Republican nomination.
We'll find out. And the next is, well, we talked about a lot of talk with Rand Paul. Well, this one certainly has generated a lot of buzz.
Yeah, when you talk about brands and logos and like them or love them or hate them, nothing has gotten more attention than this logo that Hillary Clinton rolled out over the weekend when she announced her presidential candidacy. Unlike the other logos, though, this one was actually produced by one of the top brand design firms in the country, and you can tell that it really has more of a consumer feel. Still, we're in the red, white, and blue category, which is where the other 2 logos are. It's not a lot of deviation from that in politics, but it's very simple, it's very clean, it's very iconic. And the other thing to remember when you're talking logos is that you need to evaluate it in the context of the whole visual system. If you look at the rest of Hillary's campaign materials, you'll see this arrow really as a design element that repeats over and over again in her campaign materials. And the other interesting thing about this logo is that there's been so much chatter around it. Someone's created a font they call Helvetica around the logo. But it's really one of those things when people are either going to long-term feel like this is the reason why she won, or it's going to fade into the background.
And real quick, with the arrow, what do we make of the arrow and the direction it's pointing?
I think it's meant to be that it's pointing forward. It's also hard to judge these a little bit without knowing what the criteria that was given to the designers who came up with these, so we don't know. But we're assuming, based on what Hillary has said, that it's meant to symbolize forward action, which is also the campaign slogan of President Obama's 2012 re-election campaign. So there's a little bit of symmetry there, maybe on purpose, we don't know.
All right. And then the last one here is Senator Marco Rubio.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of talk. There's probably been not as much hate on this logo as there has been on the Hillary logo. Designers have attacked it for technical reasons. The kerning on the letters is not consistent. Residents in Alaska and Hawaii have not been super happy about the fact that their they're not represented in the map of the United States. But also remember there's a whole bunch of territories that vote for president too. Puerto Rico, American Samoa, Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, not part of Marco Rubio's America. I don't know if that's going to hurt him or not, but it's a very youthful looking logo. It's also clean. It has more of a consumer feel. Certainly if you compare it to the Ted Cruz logo, this feels younger and a little bit more fresh and maybe a little bit more active.
Oh, well, that's interesting. And I think just generally speaking, though, when you look at when you view the logos in their own silos, when these candidates do create their logos and they have this vision, do they compare it to other candidates, or is it just this is what fits my brand and what we're trying to evoke?
Well, it's hard to know exactly what they're doing without hearing from them directly. But what they should do is think through, who am I as a person? I mean, brands are really about intangible objects, but people have ethics, they have values, they have morals, they have personalities, or at least they should. And a brand is kind of what you create in the marketing world to stand in for all of those things. So if you're creating a brand for a presidential campaign or for any campaign that's a personal thing, it should reflect who you are as a person. Are you smart? Are you confident? Are you youthful? Are you fresh? Are you dynamic? And these are some of the questions that I would ask as looking at these different logos. Do they feel like they're representing qualities of the candidates that would be the things that I would want to vote for as an American citizen?
Well, that's great insight. And boy, that's a lot to take in. We're only here April 2015 with a long ways to go. So we'll see how these things shake out. We thank you for joining us, and join us back on Twitter if you have more questions regarding this conversation or other questions in general regarding marketing and brands. And thanks for joining us on The Point.